We've got a 2-2 series here in the Eastern Conference Finals. You know, in the first 3 games of this series, Mike, the bench for Milwaukee thoroughly outplayed the reserves there in Toronto. But tonight, when Kawhi needed them the most, his bench stepped up. What did you make of what you saw from the non-star players, if you want to call them that, in Toronto?
Well, that was one of the primary questions post-game for everybody in the Toronto camp. And part of it, remember, is that Kawhi Leonard missed 22 regular season games, a lot of them by design, if not all of them by design. And as Kyle Lowry emphasized to me afterward, they had to learn how to play without him. And even though Kawhi, after the game tonight, tried to sort of make light, I guess, and downplay his limitations physically, anybody could see them. I mean, the limping, his inability to sort of push off or get into his normal jump shot, even in his favorite spots. So I'm going to look at this note for a second. Gasol, Lowry, Ibaka, Van Vliet, Powell, those guys all contributed in a major way. And what we've seen in so many games when Kawhi Leonard is rolling is that his teammates defer to him in the most obvious ways. They could not do that in Game 4 if they were going to expect to win, and they didn't defer. Lowry led the way with 25 points and 6 assists. You mentioned Gasol with 17 and 7. Powell again off the bench. Serge Ibaka 17 and 13. Enormous in the first half. And those guys were very assertive. Again, the word that Kyle Lowry used, very assertive, because they can look at their teammate and see he might not be able to give them offensively what they're accustomed to. Didn't rely on them, and now they're going to have to figure out whether they can do that on the road. But they did it at home to even this series, and for a change, Kawhi Leonard didn't have to be their everything and carry the team.
Yeah, 6 players in double digits for the Raptors in this Game 4 win. So that sort of begs the question, Mike, you just kind of alluded to it going back to Milwaukee. Based on what you've seen in these first 4 games, what makes you think either team can win on the other team's opposing floor?
Well, I mean, you know, it's difficult to tell now. We're talking about, is momentum going to be the theme going back to Milwaukee for Toronto, or is just home court advantage and the sort of home court dominance, at least in Game 2, going to be the theme and what Milwaukee concentrates on the off day is this series returns to Wisconsin. And it's just difficult to tell, one, how physically himself is Kawhi Leonard going to be. And that's going to be difficult to tell. He was not in this Game 4. But it didn't seem like he had any setbacks, according to Nick Nurse. Maybe they'll get somebody closer to closer to Kawhi Leonard in Game 5. And on the other hand, Toronto, their players just talked about how they gave one away. They outplayed Milwaukee 3 quarters. The first 3 quarters of the series came away with nothing. So if you've got something you can read, if you've got the tea leaves, you can tell me what's going to prevail in Game 5. I'm sure everybody will be hanging on that information. But I think a lot of it is still going to be what the Toronto Raptors are able to do. The rest of them, the guys we just talked about, on the road where it's a whole lot more difficult for some of them than at home.
Yeah, that's the question that will be answered on Thursday back in Milwaukee. Michael Wilbon, thanks for kicking it with us.